Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of American History Theater. I don't know about the name, but we're still trudging our way through the founding fathers. Hopefully, you've been enjoying what we've been talking about. Last week was Document Week, and so this week we've been taking a bit of a deep dive into the first five men who were president of the United States. So the founding fathers. And so we're going to continue today with our next two presidents, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Now, this is a young John Adams. He was from a place with an amazing name in Massachusetts called Braintree. Braintree is not very far away from the city of Boston. Uh, his aspiration in life was to be a farmer when he was a young man, but he had aptitude, and so his parents pushed him into higher learning. Eventually, he'll become a lawyer, one of the more educated men of his day. His career goal, though, if you study him up a career day, ask him what he wanted to be, is he wanted to be a great man. So you'll have to decide here at the end of what we're talking about if he made it or not. He makes a living as a lawyer up until the point where he starts to serve in legislatures, Continental Congress, and eventually the federal government. So John Adams, very different guy than what we saw with George Washington, even physically, just different guys. But again, a very important part of this early part of the American story. Uh, Basically, the best thing, in my opinion, the dude did was he married really, really well. I know that that has worked out well for me in my life. John Adams is married to a lady by the name of Abigail. Her maiden name was Abigail Smith. She had a great line when she first met him. She records in her diary that he was not fond, nor frank, nor candid. And so she really didn't pull any punches, and this was most definitely not love at first sight. She did admire his honesty. One of the things that will carry him through their marriage is a very open give and take. Intellectually, these two are equals and treated each other at equals when that really wouldn't have been the expectation in a lot of marriages during this point in time. And John Adams had one thing going for him, and it's that her dad didn't like John Adams. And so, if we know anything about psychology, we know that if you want to drive somebody into the arms of someone, just tell them that's who they can't date, and it will make that person dang near irresistible. Um, John Adams is, like I said, a lawyer. He is famous for um, defending the British soldiers who took part in the Boston Massacre. He said this: facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. And so this was an incident that was blown up by the colonials as being an example of Britain mistreating the colonies. And John Adams standing up and defending these guys was an interesting career path to take. But again, just basically saying, look, guys, this isn't what the evidence is telling us happened on this day. No matter what kind of pictures or stories you want to tell uh, to benefit your rebellion. He is elected to the Continental Congress, and so he's not going to be in the military during the Revolutionary War. He's going to be in the legislature, who is supporting the military and eventually trying to build what's going to be the structure of a nation once the Revolutionary War is over with. He was a member of the Committee of Five, and the Committee of Five was responsible for drafting the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson, of course, gets most of the credit because they were his words, but John Adams was one of his advisors. During the war, he's also sent to France to try and convince the French to join the Revolutionary War on the side of the Americans. And so there's a lot of international stuff he's doing while the war's raging here in the United States. He is an ambassador that will travel to a lot of different places. He and Abigail will spend an awful lot of their marriage apart. She's kind of left home with the kids, and he is in some foreign country, being an ambassador and kind of plying the case of the United States. He is our first vice president. So he serves under George Washington as Vice President of the United States. Believe it or not, being Vice President isn't a great way to get to be President. It's not just kind of something that is an automatic to bring you into the job. But he's Vice President. Didn't really like the job. When you read the Constitution at night before you go to bed, you know that there's not a whole lot constitutionally that the Vice President is supposed to do. And he wasn't close with Washington. Wasn't one of his closer advisors, and so really found the job kind of dull in being the vice president. But in 1796, he is going to run for his own term as president of the United States. Runs against Thomas Jefferson, and like I said, wins that election and keeps the Federalist train going into that term, third time we have a president, a third presidential term. A couple of big things that happen. There is a war that we try, they try and draw us into in France. He manages to avoid that. There is a incident known as the XYZ affair, and I'll link a video on our page to it, but some spy intrigue, them trying to get some money out of some of the ambassadors to the United States. And so there are some different things that are working in that area too. Probably the black eye, the black mark on his presidency are the Alien and Sedition Acts. And the Alien and Sedition Acts are he passed to keep people from speaking out against the government, which of course kind of goes against that whole First Amendment thing that we really enjoy. But it's something that still today gets thrown up against Adams, that he signs this act, making it basically illegal to criticize the government. And so, yeah, he's got just some different things as president. Nothing that stands out. Probably the biggest thing that he does is he is considered to be the father of the American Navy. And he also has a son, John Quincy Adams, that will go on to be president in his own right. All right, so we move on to our third president. Again, I want to encourage you. I've got some videos up there on the YouTube channel playlist that you might enjoy as you look at these guys and their contributions. But Thomas Jefferson, third president of the United States. We already talked about this election in 1800 that was such a kind of contentious affair. Really is going to drive a wedge in between these two guys that'll last for a couple of decades. Yeah, yada, yada, yada. We talked about that. Declaration of Independence, he wrote that too. Yada, yada, yada. All those things. As a young man, he was born in Virginia. And so we're going to have another Virginia president. So we went George Washington from Virginia, Massachusetts with John Adams. Now we're going to go back to Virginia for our next three presidents. He was always known as kind of a bright spark. He is maybe one of the greatest intellects we've ever had be president of the United States, was an excellent science student, was extremely well read, obviously a prolific writer. The dude just academically had it going on. Attended college at William and Mary, and kind of distinguished himself with how hard he pushed himself in his coursework. Had a famous work called Notes on the State of Virginia, where he talked about the creation of that state system of government and those sorts of things. He's a member of the Continental Congress. He's sent to France, and that'll be kind of a reputation that will follow him as what was called a Francophile, somebody that loved France, maybe to his detriment, right? It's kind of a slam that they put on him. But he was very entranced by what he saw in France. If you've seen the musical Hamilton, right? When he comes in, you see Thomas Jefferson for the first time as he sings the song "What Did I Miss," and he comes back as um, to serve in Washington's cabinet as Secretary of State, but he missed a lot of those early battles with the Constitution. Um, Probably the most controversial thing about Thomas Jefferson, besides that article you were reading about him owning slaves, was a relationship that he had with one of his slaves, a young slave girl named Sally Hemings. Um, and I've got another video on the playlist that'll go into some detail there. DNA evidence in the last 4 or 5 years has really kind of confirmed that he did father some children by Sally Hemings after his wife had passed away. And again, it's just part of this kind of enigma that is Thomas Jefferson. This idea of all these lofty words that he wrote, and maybe not living up to those in kind of his own personal life. Um, as a president, he did some interesting things. He said that his presidency, his election, was a second revolution, that he was going to return power back to the states. But as president, he didn't really do that a whole lot. He snapped up the chance to buy the Louisiana Purchase, which bought kind of the middle part of America, doubled the United States in size, which is a huge use of the power of the federal government. Didn't blink an eye. Got a great deal on it. You can't blame him. But again, it's almost one of those things that things sound really good until you're confronted with the situation, and he did what he thought was right in that situation. He also, once the Library of Congress, which is there in Washington, D.C., had burned, he gives his own book collection to restart the Library of Congress. You can still go there today. They've got a room full of his books um, and books that are of the same era that he would have donated, and just a massive collection. Extremely well-read guy. If you're looking for an interesting study about him, check out what's called the Jeffersonian Bible. He actually did some creative cutting, if you're allowed to do that, with the New Testament. So maybe something that you'd be interested in. But Jefferson as a president doesn't go down as being a great president per se. He's much more just kind of the package, just all the things he did, writing the Declaration of Independence and that sort of thing. This is his gravestone. He is buried at his home, a place called Monticello. If you ever get a chance to go out to Virginia, it is well worth the stop. You can tour his home, see all just kind of the amazing inventions that he brought back into the house, learn a little bit more about his life, the plantation lifestyle he had. But here is the inscription from his gravestone. Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. You'll notice something is missing from that list. He did not like being president of the United States and didn't regard it as a good enough experience to have it written on his gravestone. And so, not necessarily a real happy, I guess, experience as president. He and Adams eventually do make up. I can't remember if I told you in the election of 1800 video or not, but do make up, and they will both die on the same day, July 4th, 1826, 50 years after the Declaration of Independence was adopted by the Continental Congress. So that is kind of the end of Thomas Jefferson. We'll see him again. We talk Lewis and Clark and kind of the effects of the Louisiana Purchase. That's just a little bit about his life.